couple drew up outside in a battered old camper van and offloaded several boxes of books. All the books I found were old, rediscovered Victorian and Edwardian stories published by Eden in the 20s and 30s, plus a couple from the early 50s. I had no idea that the Society also published contemporary works, and it was only recently that I found out about the stories in this series that you're about to listen to. I say contemporary, but for many of you coming to these stories, the 70s must seem as impossibly remote as the world of Dracula, Dr. Jekyll and the House of Usher felt to me when I was a teenager back then. Even me, when I look at footage from the 70s, I think that I might as well be looking at footage from the 19th century. It seems so long ago and far away. It all looks so grey and grim and grimy, the people emaciated, haunted. It was a period of 3-day weeks, constant strikes, blackouts, rubbish lying uncollected in the streets. The population of London was dwindling as people fled from the run-down cities. It all looks pretty dystopian, to tell you the truth. So in many ways the 70s are as perfect a setting for horror stories as crusty, crepuscular, crenellated, crumbling old Gothic Europe. So I hope you enjoy these rediscovered recordings and feel encouraged to find out more about the mysterious Eden Book Society.
Holt House. Introduction by Aaliyah Whiteley. Holt House wasn't the first of the Eden Book Society titles that I came across, but it's the only one that has compelled me to make a strange journey of my own. It's not often that an imaginary place is described so vividly that you start to believe it exists. But that's exactly what happened to me when I first read L.G. Vey's 1972 novella. It's the story of an old house that seems to have been standing forever, and a man who has strange, piecemeal memories of it. He lives in the Holtwood behind the house, and he watches it through a gap in its back fence. A country house surrounded by quiet woodlands is an idyllic image, and yet the book manages to infuse this with dread as the man watches and waits for some event that he can't quite articulate in his diary. Every description of the rustling of the cherry trees in blossom, of small animals crouching in the undergrowth, creates another layer of horror. And there is the house itself, with the washing line strung from the kitchen window to the wooden shed, and the perfect stretch of green lawn between them. It is both homely and frozen in time. When I first read of it, it felt so familiar to me I could have sworn I had been there before. In truth, I couldn't have. I spent my childhood in Devon, and Holt House is undoubtedly set in Hampshire. The author mentions the occasional town name, and there is the strong sense throughout that he is describing country that he knows well. The scant amount of information we have about L.G. Vey tells us that he lived most of his life in Hampshire, leaving only to fight in World War II. When he returned, he bought a house and settled there for good. He never married and died alone, having worked as a television technician and a screenwriter of science fiction and horror for many years. I was 5 years old at the time of his death. His life was very different from my own. But there is something we have in common, despite that separation of generations, and that's an interest in otters. I've spent hours hoping to see an otter as I've walked across the woods and moorlands close to my childhood home. I have never come across one. They fascinate me. I have devoured books such as Tarka the Otter and Ring of Bright Water that describe these creatures so well, concentrating on their thick brown fur and their playful grace. They are quick, fast and strong, and so beautiful. I've always felt a close connection to them that I can't explain. Perhaps, when I was growing up and feeling trapped in the quiet countryside, it was their freedom that I craved. I didn't realize that their freedom was an illusion. They had nearly been hunted to extinction, and their habitats were shrinking. A Holtwood should be inhabited by otters, you might think. I certainly expected to find them amongst the pages of a book called Holt House, and otters did appear in those pages, but they were nothing like the animals I'd read about in classic stories. They were frightening, somehow, like the woods and the house.